Good afternoon. So I said I was going to do this segment about the OG trade during the post-game show, and I will do that after the Pistons game. But I just wanted to put out an initial reaction before I dig into the numbers a little bit. Um, if you haven't if you haven't heard, the Toronto Raptors are sending Agagua, Anunoby, former 23rd pick of Britain, uh, by way of Nigeria, to the New York Knicks in exchange for RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, and a second, which is probably going to be, I've heard, around the 31st pick ish. So obviously, and it's kind of beautiful. A few hours ago, it was announced that Goran Dragic was going to the glue factory. So kind of poetic that the Raptors bolster up their guard depth, guard rotation, kind of in the wake of that. And people are sad about OG. I'm sure he really did have a Nathan Fielder. It's like a thick Nathan Fielder for a lot of people. So, that's gonna be tough. He was really a fan favorite. Sorry, just closed the window there. But obviously, I think everybody saw the writing on the wall. I think Masai kind of maybe had a King Theoden moment where he came back to life. My dreams have been dark as of late, or whatever the quote is. And, got a guy in Emmanuel Quickley who kind of profiles similar to Tyrese Maxey's play style. You've got a lot of pull-ups. You've got a lot of floaters. I was talking last night after the post-game show about how the Raptors don't have a single guy in the rotation, maybe outside of Scotty, but he's not really super into that type of shot. But having a guard with that threat, Gary tries to do it. He tries to do these little runners and push shots and stuff, but he doesn't have the balance, doesn't have the lower body strength apparently to execute them efficiently, or the touch, I guess. And this is something that Quickly is really, really known for. And I think it's a really good fit with Scotty. I always thought like a Kyle Lowry play type would be a really good fit alongside Scotty. And I said in a couple of games ago to the post game show that, if I was Masai, I would be going after a point guard who has upside, but is also not like a star type player. And he's not, and I think he can become that, but you want someone that's going to grow with Scotty, who's going to respect Scotty's timeline and development and stuff. And so this, I think, makes a ton of sense for Toronto. I thought OG was a good fit with Scotty, but I didn't think it was a great fit. If you had 100 NBA players, maybe he'd be in the top 20 or 30 to fit with Scotty, but OG never developed a handle. He can finish. He's a good finisher in transition, but he's not fast. Scotty likes to play really fast. He likes to play fluid basketball, and as we've seen from OG, not a great driver, not a great dribbler, and really kind of a limited offensive player in terms of finishing. Obviously, he has a great shot, but Emmanuel Quickley is really the opposite in terms of OG, with 3-point shooting. OG is more in the corner. We saw earlier in the year there was a couple games where OG was taking unassisted above the break threes, which was very rare, and wrote that down a bunch and was that's really notable. And then that kind of disappeared, and that's really the threat you're getting with an Emmanuel Quickley. He has a range, but also he's a really good pull-up 3-point shooter, which the Raptors haven't had in, I guess, since Kyle Lowry. The Raptors haven't had a player like this since a Kyle Lowry, a fast point guard that can organize things, that can run things, get in the spots, deliver passes out. I just put a little, not a compilation, but just a highlight package of a game of his from earlier this year where he went for 40 points on 14 for 18 from the field, 9 assists, and just had really good control of the game. So for after the Pistons game, it's going to give me a couple hours to go. I don't know his shooting splits. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's around 40% from three. I'm going to look into all that so I have more info to talk about after the Pistons game. But initial reactions, I had my Twitter timeline turned off, and I put out a little Jalen McDaniels highlight reel from the game last night, and I was like, oh, this isn't performing very well. And then I saw on the sidebar OG Anunoby trade, and I thought maybe it was a rumor or one of those videos where someone like photoshops OG Anunoby into a 76ers jersey and gets a bunch of views. I thought it was one of those things maybe. But then, yeah, went on Reddit and went like, holy shit. I did see, the headline I saw first was and draft compensation. So I was like maybe hoping that there was a first or a couple firsts or something in there, just kind of hopeful, stargazing, daydreaming. But they get a second, which is almost like a first. Apparently it's going to be around 31. And, we're also losing Malachi Flynn, famously BlogTO. Wrote an article about my Malachi farting video. It's an all-time Raptor moment, probably top 5 moment, to be honest. And so gonna miss Mr. Flynn. I could see him. I went to New York to film this video. That's why I'm an hour late. Had to go to New York to be on the ground here in Times Square, where Malachi Flynn can enjoy a slice from Sparrow, New York's most famous authentic pizza joints. Precious Achiuwa, I'm sure, can hit the art museums here. A lot of great art museums and culture for him. Not sure how he'll fit on the floor, but you do have the Mitchell Robinson hole, so he'll probably fill some minutes there. But I think more importantly, he'll get to be involved in the art scene and the fashion scene. I think that will be really good for him. And OG Anunoby, obviously, they need a player like that, and he's been rumored to go to the Knicks for a long time. It is funny that obviously there's an ongoing lawsuit between these two teams, so I wonder if there was I wonder who from each team was talking to each other, and maybe if they were like not involved in the lawsuit potentially. I don't know, but that is kind of a comical situation. I guess that puts the Jakob Hurtle for Evan Fournier deal potentially as a possibility. But yeah, I mean, I'll read the chat in a sec, but like, what do people think about the trade? I think some reports going out there that they're going to be looking to make further deals. I don't think that's a surprise. It definitely was a surprise that it happened this quickly. Trades rarely ever happen in December, so Masai is really trying to avoid a January 6, like 6IX, 6 and then IX. That joke plays better on text. It didn't really work as I just said it right now. But a January 6 type situation where the fans just storm the MLSC headquarters and force Masai to make a trade. And so, to play devil's advocate, you could say that OG right now is the best player in this trade, and you don't ever want to trade the best player. I don't really agree with that. It's pretty black and white. But I think they were going to have to give OG like 40 mil on a team that is in a very kind of weird, a retool, rebuild, or whatever the fuck. But they're in a bit of a weird place, and it just didn't feel right, I don't think, in the long term. And I don't know, like I've heard kind of secondhand or reports or whatever that OG probably wasn't going to be re-upping unless there was a $40 million type of thing, which he could probably get on the open market from somebody a la Fred. And, shouts to Masai for not letting everybody's horrors come to fruition, which was an asset of OG Anunoby's caliber walking out the door, because OG Anunoby is what got these players. Like Precious Achiuwa, Malachi Flynn, no disrespect, but wish them all the best. But this was an OG Anunoby centered trade. There's a couple of people on Twitter being really excited about Precious Achiuwa from the Knicks side, so we'll see how that pans out. RJ Barrett, I mean, he immediately on a team with like zero guards basically. It's another good player. I don't think his upside is as high as Emmanuel Quickley's. I don't think his fit is necessarily as ideal, but I still think it's good. Like you saw him on Team Canada running the floor really well in transition. He's got speed. He can finish at the rim. Half court stuff can feel like a bit of a slog. The 3 ball has really fallen off a cliff, but he's a great finisher. So in theory, he should be like a pretty good fit with Scotty, kind of like how OG was like a pretty good fit. Maybe not ideal, but I do think someone like Quickley, who plays quickly, and who is a good passer, plays quickly, really good spacing, gonna spread the floor, gonna open things up, and he's not like a star type player that's gonna demand like, oh, I need, at least I don't, don't think so. Some cool pictures of him, riding a horse that I found, and I don't really know much about him. Gonna, I guess, dive into social media or whatever, try to get a vibe. I was wondering if maybe the Raptors could rent OG from James Dolan for the hour against the Pistons today. They're going to be really shorthanded without Precious, Malachi, and OG, so maybe another huge McDaniels game. But this is my initial reaction to the trade, and I'll go deeper on the post-game show. But yeah, I just think that I don't think anything is surprising here. I would maybe be a little bit surprised that they got both RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickley, because I do think, and that's more because of where OG's contract is, and obviously they assume or hope that they're going to be able to re-sign him. Now, what's going to be interesting is, we've heard all these rumblings about OG wanting a bigger role, wanting more shots. I think it was in Nick Nurse's book. Tom Thibodeau loves defense, obviously, so he's going to love OG for that, but he's not, I don't think he's really the coach that is going to be promoting kind of wilding out on offense, if that's what, this isn't a situation with Jeremy Grant in Detroit where he can just kind of cook. There's a structure there, there's a system. They're going to be a playoff team this year, most likely, unless something kind of crazy happens. But so I'll be interested to see how he fits into that. But they needed a guy like him if they're going to, get past the first, second round of the playoffs. So I think for them it makes sense if they can keep him, if they can sign him. I mean, if they couldn't, that would be a disaster for the Knicks. And then I think with Quickley, it's the same situation with the Raptors. I think he has one more year and Barrett has 3 more years or something like that. But yeah, it's most importantly, I think everybody can kind of agree. The most important thing is how does it fit with Scottie? Because that is how the offense is going to be structured moving forward. I don't think that's really up for debate, especially after the season he's had. And it's a really good fit. And just me, personally, not that it matters, but aesthetically, I was a short, stubby little point guard who had to play fast and had to have, a decent shot. So I've always gravitated towards wanting to watch players that, not necessarily smaller players, but players that can shoot, players that can dribble. I really wanted Masai to get players that can dribble. That was a really big thing for me. We saw Jalen McDaniels last night, dribbling the ball. It's wow, it's, maybe one day OG and Precious will get there. So you're really trading out 2 guys that have no handle and are not good playmakers. So I think that's, the Raptors want to play with more assists, more ball movement. And so this trade also kind of makes sense structurally, I think, with how they want to play. And I don't know if they become even more of a transition team now because they're going to have, but it'll be interesting. It's a very uninteresting thing to say. It's going to be interesting to see, but I'm anticipating or wondering if this will change at all how the Raptors play offense, and I'm sure it'll be a feeling out process. But yeah, overall, I'm impressed. I'm impressed with what Masai was able to do. Especially in the context of OG has much less value than he did last year when all these trade rumors were going around. And I guess the year before as well, because he had more years on his contract. So for him to, I guess, kind of be a rental player, quote unquote, and to still get a return like this where you're getting 2 quality guards out of this deal on a team that desperately needs this. It's been a CPR, the Raptors guard rotation. I mean, prior to this trade, I've said this a few times on this show. I guess this is a new show now. I don't know what this is, but they probably have the worst guard rotation in the NBA. It's at that it's been at that level, and I think everybody has had a kind of horrific time enjoying the product. And so this, for me, this immediately makes the Raptors more fun to watch. Even if they're losing, it makes so much more sense now that you've got two guys that fit alongside Scotty way more than one guy did, or like 1.2 guys did. Like, did Precious fit with Scotty? No. Did Malachi fit with Scotty? No. And again, OG fits, but like, he's not, if you're designing a player to fit alongside Scotty, I don't think it's OG. Like, it's a good fit, but if you're in the lab, he's missing key qualities. The handle really drove me crazy, to be honest, watching him even unguarded. There was a play last night against the Celtics where, like, even when he's kind of like drifting back, apologies to any Knicks fans watching this, but have fun watching this, but like, him drifting back unguarded, just kind of like surveying the land, going through the legs, like that's a job for him. Like, just kind of slowly drifting back and dribbling through his legs and looking across the court with nobody on him. Like, it feels like the ball is going to go out of bounds. Like, it's like even those little simple things that like most NBA players do in their sleep. For him, it's always like, ooh. And his drives, him and Precious, both were like massive purveyors of these just disgusting, which always, again, drove me and I think a lot of people crazy, because these are two guys that are super strong, have really, really good lower body strength, but they would just get like fucked up in the paint, being off balance, taking like weird, awkward shots. They were both purveyors and connoisseurs of this. And so you're eliminating both of those in one swoop. So, I mean, in terms of like watchability, that's going to go through the roof. Defense wise, I said this on Twitter last night. I really have felt the last 3-4 weeks, OG's defense has fallen off of a cliff. It was brutal last night against Jaylen Brown. Beginning of the year, he was shutting down Wemby. He was shutting down Giannis. Like, it was really impressive. In the last 3-4 weeks, he's just looked really lethargic, disinterested, goofy, silly. And maybe he knew this was coming. Maybe he had kind of tapped out. I thought he was injured maybe, but he had really fallen off a cliff. But we know that all in all, OG is a really good defender. But, like, the NBA is changing. And yeah, I'm sure Tibbs like loves this. It's RJ Barrett, who, is a good player, but it's not like, oh my God. And then your backup point guard, because they have Jalen Brunson. So for Tibbs, I'm sure, and I'm sure for Nick, so that's why I think it's a good trade all around. And you could make the argument that they probably could have got more for OG last year, but it is what it is. Be interesting to see what they do with their top 10 center now. Is this a player that they see running a lot of P&R? Are they I just actually thought of this right now. Maybe part of the reason for making this trade is to see if he can fit with Jakob. And if Quickley can have chemistry with Jakob and make that work. If it doesn't work out, and I don't think that's like that's like item number 6 on the priority list. But if that doesn't work out, then really what is the point of Jakob? He's been benched 3 of the 4 times in the second half. The last 3 of the last 4 games he's been benched in the second half, outside of 2 seconds in for a rebound. And Precious and Malachi had basically been taken out of the rotation, and they're both in the trade, so maybe they knew as well. Okay, I got some synapses going, because we've seen that in the last week. Their playing time has just been like falling off of a cliff, and then OG has also, seems like he's mentally kind of not been there the last few weeks. So maybe they all kind of knew what was coming, but that's just me on drugs and speculating. What's going on in the chat? What do you guys think of this? Pale Fox, I think you got a legit 2-for-1 starter trade. It's a good way to look at it. Especially with where the Raptors are at, this completely flips the team. And more trades might be coming, but yeah, I think, trades are hard to like, I'm not going to give a grade on this. I hate that shit. Like, especially the day it happens. Like, we're still seeing the Halliburton Sabonis trade play out. Like, I don't know what a grade is. I think you have to wait it out. But, initial reaction to it makes a lot of sense for both teams. And I've watched the Raptors more than the Knicks, so I kind of predisposed to thinking this in terms of the Raptors. OG3 says, Grange said the deal has been talked about since our last loss to the Knicks, which coincides with OG slumping on defense. Interesting. Good point. The chat giveth today. The chat giveth, the chat taketh away, but the chat giveth today. That was good. That's a good point. I didn't know that, but that's kind of like, I don't know how do you guys think about that? I think that's kind of lame on OG's part to just kind of check out like that. Like, that's kind of personality wise, that's kind of shitty when you've got your people you're friends with, I would assume, potential pizza party compadres, kind of leaving them out to dry a little bit. You're still starting, you're still for him to do that, honestly, that kind of shows this little Vince Carter syndrome. Maybe he was tipping maybe he was telling Peyton Pritchard about because man, his defense last night was awful. In the first, Jaylen Brown had like 19 points in the first quarter. His defense, like, he didn't even show up to that game last night. So maybe he knew that today was the day. Again, can we rent him for the hour against the Pistons? But I mean, Farquad says getting rid of Precious and Malachi is the real W. It's been a tough watch. It really has been a tough watch. I know there's been a lot of talks about Malachi's. Will made a funny joke on Twitter about like Darko and the Chain, and like all the players that the front office has talked about are kind of out the door now. But I think with Malachi and Precious, like, if they go and create good NBA careers for themselves, there is absolutely zero, in my opinion, zero regret, seller's remorse, and others buyers is seller's remorse a thing? Zero. We've seen. I think Malachi has played some. I looked this up, like 2,800 minutes with the Raptors. Like, I have seen Malachi Flynn. I have seen Precious Achiuwa. I'm obviously higher on Precious Achiuwa than Malachi Flynn as an asset, but if they go off and they develop something and they turn into something, congratulations for them. I don't think anybody's going to be like, oh, I can't believe we gave up on Precious and Malachi. I mean, I'm sure there will be some, but I don't see myself being in that boat. I think we've kind of seen, it's funny, the Heat just drafted Jaime Jaquez. The Heat drafted Precious around the same range. Like, Jaime Jaquez was 18th. Precious was like 21st, I think, or 20th. And Jaime Jaquez is like already what you wanted Precious Achiuwa to develop into. It's like year 4 for Precious. There was no extension. And he just plays like silly. Like, he does silly shit on the court all the time. And I myself included, like, it's funny to look at. It's funny. I think I've made 8 or 9, Precious videos. You once in a while get the crazy dunks. Obviously, he's got crazy athleticism. He's just naturally someone my eye gravitates towards when watching basketball, but not necessarily for the good reasons. It's Precious Achiuwa is fun to watch sometimes in the way that the Room movie is fun to watch. Like, you watch it because it's just so otherworldly. I mean, I put that video a week ago on Twitter being like, the mid-range fadeaway, one of the most beautiful shots in basketball. And it's Precious cutting in from the right corner 3 and, pushing off a little bit, and then like shooting a fadeaway like it's a floater and coming up like 8 feet short on an air ball. And I mean, you saw him go into ISO ball last night, coming into the game for 2 minutes. Honestly, it has been baffling to watch. Malachi, I understand. Like, I understand Malachi. He's not communicative. Number one, if you're a point guard, like I was just watching some Quickley highlights, very brief, but like he's pointing. I've never seen Malachi point at anybody before. I've never seen Malachi yell at anybody before. I've never seen Malachi shift people over or get out or clear over. You come here. Like, I don't really remember him like putting up the fist for a screen a lot of the times. Like, he's just so quiet, so timid. And, every time, pretty much every time, it's the same thing. Brings the ball up the floor, passes it to the 2 or the 3, and then cuts. And it's not an aggressive cut. It's not I'm passing it and now I'm beelining to the rim to look for it to get it back to me. I'm gonna just kind of. It's like when you play pickup with a group of people that you don't know and are way better than you, and you happen to have the ball, bring it up, and you pass it to the 2 or the 3, and then you just kind of go over to the corner. That's what he does like every single possession. There's no threat. Sometimes he gets the ball back for a 3. His 3 had been better this year, but again, it was 32, 33%. So what does this mean for Gary? Is another way to look at it. I mean, he had a rough shooting night, but I think there's different ways you can look at the Gary situation now, because on one hand, you now have much more, you have a deeper guard rotation from this. So Gary probably slides to 4th, 3rd and a half, 4th in the rotation. And you had, before this trade, Grady Dick was your 4th guy. He has the 143rd best three-point shooting percentage in the G League, the 17th highest field goal percentage on the 905, the 15th highest true shooting percentage on the 905, and that was your fourth guy in the guard rotation. So you've completely changed that. Grady's 6th in the rotation now? So it completely changes the complexity and the look of the team. And I don't know where I was going with that, but Precious needs to understand that Tibbs is not going to be all buddy like Darko was. I mean, wow. Great point. Good chat today. Talk about like opposites of personality. Tibbs really is Michael Scott from season 1. Like, he's got that same, because they made Michael Scott angry in the first year. He was more modeled after David Brent, but then American audiences were too stupid to relate, like you can relate to Tony Soprano or Walter White, but we have to relate. So they made him much more light and kind of cheery, but like Tibbs with the hair and with the demeanor, with the attitude, he is season 1 Michael Scott, and that is very different, from Darko. Maybe Nick and Tibbs are similar-ish in personality. Nick may be a little bit warmer, but yeah, Tibbs, man. There's a great picture of Tibbs from the 90s where he's got a huge mullet, like really long flowing hair. 80s or 90s. It's an incredible picture. I put it up on the Raptor Moments No Context Downloads Folder Twitter account. Go follow that if you're not following that. It's just random photo dumps from my downloads folder, as the name says. Jimmy Pope, what do you think the lineup will be? Interesting. I haven't really even thought about that yet. What will the lineup be? I would say probably Quickley and Garrett, or Quickley and Barrett. Garrett, Temple, RJ Barrett. Probably Barrett and Quickley start. I would think, with Scotty, Pascal, and I guess Jakob. Is that 6 people? Is that 6 people? No, I think that's 5. Quickley, Barrett, Scotty, Pascal, Yak. That's what I would assume. That's what I would guess. I don't know, but that's what I would assume. I don't necessarily love Yak in the starting lineup, but now you've really got with Precious out the door, your center position is thinner. I mean, we saw Jalen McDaniels last night basically play center, which worked out well. I mean, he is like 6'10", sneaky tall guy. He doesn't look that tall, like when you just look at him for some reason. Like, he just doesn't have the look. Does anybody else agree with me? Like, when people say he's like 6'10" or over, I'm kind of like, okay, like he's taller than Precious, which is like, okay. So who knows what his role is? Obviously, we saw him do really well last night in a switchy defense, and I was impressed. Like, he played really well, so I could see his role expanding out. He's still really young, and honestly, it's like I said, I've seen Precious, I've seen Malachi. I would rather give those looks to somebody that we don't really know what they are yet. Malachi, again, I believe it was around 2,800 minutes he's played on the Raptors. So, I've seen it. I've seen the movie. Corn Pop. Malachi got that little bro energy. Yeah, I did put a clip out of him as Michael Scott going to Sparrow in New York. If Malachi develops into something, whoever does that deserves an award and a Hall of Fame spot, says the Shy Star Boy. Jonathan Graves, another good one here. OG's agent is also the son of the Knicks president. So it's likely they've been talking about this for some time. Interesting. So that's obviously a way to kind of circumvent. Wow. That's a way to circumvent the kind of awkwardness or the tension potentially in this ongoing lawsuit. Maybe it was more, back channels and stuff, or, maybe not, what is it, Leon Rose and Masai talking directly, or maybe they were. I don't know. That's an interesting reality TV show that we'll never get to watch. OG3, if Precious actually turns into a good decision maker randomly in year 5, it would be hilarious. My belief is that's the hardest thing to develop in basketball. You can develop a handle, you can develop a shot. When do you really see players take the jump of yeah, he made horrible decisions when he was 20. Precious low-key, not that young anymore. Same age as 20. He's not 20. He's been in the league now for a little bit. We've seen enough. There was an Open Gym episode of him talking about he grew up playing the point guard. I need to see that tape because the decision making, especially around the perimeter, it's just because there's been these talks oh, does he want to be a wing or does he want to be a center? And it's just oh my God, what are we doing? He had that one stretch 2 years ago where he shot well from 3 when defenses weren't guarding him, and then the second there was the adjustment made, it fell back off a cliff because they were contested now. So you can't live off of open threes your entire career. People are going to adjust, and he just clearly has not. I've heard from my I guess when I say my sources, people probably know who that is. I've heard from my sources, my unnamed sources that maybe you know who they are, have said watching Precious in warm-ups at practice, they don't go in. The shot doesn't go in. And it's not like he's missing. I feel like when OG misses, it's pretty much always front rim. It just needs a little bit more juice. He famously, that I've talked about, does this wrist thing that drives me insane. And it's just you've seen a little bit more juice on some of those, and that's why his numbers are better. Precious, it's left long, it's right long, it's right short, it's left short, it's front short, it's front long, it's air ball, it's top, it's side of the backboard. It's just his spray chart from 3 off is just what have either of Precious or Malachi really developed? And maybe counterpoint to that, outside of Scotty, what have any of the Raptors developed? What has Gary developed? Gary shot 48% from 3 in the bubble on 6.7 attempts a game. He's down to below league average now. What has Gary developed? So yeah, you bring in two more young starting caliber players. I mean, Quickley, he's not going to start over Brunson, but 2 caliber starting players that are still. What's RJ Barrett, 25? He was in the 2019 draft, 24, 25. Quickly's younger than that, I believe. So, Corn Pot, mentally, it's hard to stay focused when you're on the trading block. I mean, I agree. But I think you can still put the effort. I think for me, it was more of an effort. Last night in transition, Drew Holiday just walking into an open 3, and OG's just running out there to, that was not a Nazi salute, by the way. That was a closing out of a 3. He was just running out there yeah, whatever, I'll close it out. Cool. It didn't look like he was really engaged. So I get the focus can shift, but I feel the effort, especially when these are presumably your friends and everything. Be interested to see how this kind of changes the social dynamic. I know. I just realized this. This is a great point. Aggregators take this point and run with it. you're trading three very like introverted people. I'm introverted, but and I'm not saying that's a bad thing or anything, but it'd be interesting to see what the social dynamic is. I don't know a ton about Quickley and Barrett's personality, but all Malachi, Precious, and OG, like OG famously, very quiet, very shy. And we've heard reports that the locker room's very quiet, kind of withdrawn. So maybe this, I've seen pictures of Quickley on a horse. I've seen him dressed in all white and jewelry. So, I mean, I don't know, like maybe there's some good vibes there. I know the Darko's all about the vibes, so maybe that's important. Preston Jacobs says Quickley is a poor man's Maxi. I love it. I mean, it's a tough way to look at it, but it's the same player profile. Like it's the same shot diet. It's the same. The way they play is very similar. Even the mechanics on the shot are kind of similar too. Like it's a very like catapulty shot in a good way. Like it's very heavy on the tricep extension, both of them. They're not pushing the ball at all. It's very they're both very snappy, which is good. You like that, especially pull up threat. You want that. You want snappiness. Anything else from the chat? Handsome, OG's first step and handles are too slow to be the offensive go-to he wants to be. Yeah, his first step is like not even, it's like I was going to say negative step, but that's actually like a good thing. Like Jordan had a really good negative step where you kind of bend back over your shin and then explode. He doesn't have a first step, a negative step, a side step, a left step, a right step, a two step. He's not stepping. He's like, I don't know. It just, his like the way he plays basketball a lot of the time just like doesn't, like he's really strong, but he doesn't, like he's very low on the yoga chart. Him, Yak, and Gary could really solve a lot of their problems in life with a legitimate Pilates and yoga program that they're committed to. Because I agree, that totally holds OG back from, because like, okay, so think of someone, I mean, I just freshly watched every 2-point unassisted Shai Gilgeous-Alexander make. Just, if you're a basketball fan, it's very aesthetically pleasing to watch. He's consistently, because I'm saying he's probably the best driver in the game, and OG seems to really want to add that. OG wants to drive. Seems like he likes those kind of mid-range shots, kind of the turnarounds where it's just like a rusty bicycle kind of spinning. And you see Shai, and he just has, like, not only is he getting to the open spaces, like, he's not trying to, like, beat his man to a specific spot and then do a prepackaged move over him that he's practiced a bunch of times. He goes wherever the space is, whoever is there. He does not give a fuck. If Rudy Gobert is there, he goes right up to the precipice of where Rudy's going to block him. And then he does an even more athletic, off balance, bendy. If you pause him in the way he bends his body, he's doing just a ton of crazy training to do this. And OG and Precious, throw them into this category, are literally the opposite. They go right into traffic. They try to do those athletic finishes, whether it's a fadeaway or it's a step back, or falling away shot off one leg or whatever. And it's just like, they're doing it because they're losing balance. They're not doing it because they're seeking more space for their shot to get a cleaner finish. It's because they literally cannot stand on one leg. It's just like, it's enraging to watch. So yeah, that is really going to hold OG back, and that's why he's primarily a 3-point threat and not, he's a 3-point threat and a transition finisher. But yeah, ball in his hands. I cannot see Tibbs being like, hell yeah, OG. I want you catching the ball on the wing. I want you going to a triple threat position, and I want you to just fucking explode into the paint. Like, okay. We'll see. Maybe he can, maybe New York will inspire him. It's a very magical city. I'm here right now. I feel the magic. Maybe he will be influenced by the magic. Go down to the Imagine Mosaic in Central Park, go over Serendipity, get an ice cream, take the train out to Coney Island, run into Jerry Seinfeld. Maybe his life will change. Handsome says, I like this trade. Sean Chance is hard for hyped. Wow, I can't talk for RJ. Hope he can shine at home. Yeah, I guess I haven't really talked about RJ as much. Not super familiar, like not familiar enough with his game to give like a more detailed breakdown. Like I haven't watched enough of his stuff. I feel like I have watched Quickley like more closely, just because he's the type of player that my eyes just like normally gravitate towards. That's why I never found like Fred very interesting. I don't really find Dennis that interesting. I gravitate towards, you know, Allen Iverson was my favorite player as a kid growing up. Like I gravitate towards those type of players, and he is more of that profile. And to me, it's just such a more aesthetically pleasing way to play basketball. And like, who knew that dribbling a ball and shooting a ball could be a great thing, even if you're not 6'9"? Like, who could have ever imagined this? Yeah. When are they going to start? What's their first game? Mazar M says, they're most likely playing on Monday at home against the Cavs. Okay. Against the Cavs. The East runs through Cleveland. It'll be fun. And they play basketball in 2 hours against Detroit. So big day. Big day in Raptorland. You've got biggest trade since what was the last biggest trade that the Raptors have done up to this magnitude? Gary for Norm, I wouldn't, not quite as big. Is it all the way back to the Kawhi trade? Like, it's obviously not. Kyle Lowry Precious is not. The Thad Young trade, no. Freddie Gillespie, no. Daniel Otoro, all the beautiful assets that the front office has taken a look at. Drew Eubanks, like, this has got to be the biggest trade since DeMar and Kawhi. I would off the top of my head. Correct me if I'm wrong. So yeah, what do you guys think? Click says, you were just talking about someone who can hit a floater. Exactly. It's such an important shot, because now that you've got, ideally, when you have space spread out and you have players that are fast, it's a great combination if you have a floater. If you've got open space and you're fast and you can get a floater up against drop, like, that just creates so much more of a threat offensively. Like, that's going to help so much in the half court. And they just haven't, even was Kyle a super big floater guy? Like, I don't really think so. Like, Fred, no. Gary, God, no. I don't want to ever see another Gary Trent Jr. floater in my life, unless he's going off 2 feet and he's putting weight into the ground. I cannot watch, now that we're going to watch Emmanuel Quickley do floaters, which he has a really nice floater. I can't, it's amazing. He goes off 2 feet. He's balanced. He puts weight into the ground. It's soft touch. He's not doing Gary where he's like turning to his side and then like jumping like he's on a diving board. Maybe he can show Gary how to, stay squared on a floater. My God, my fuck, that would be beautiful. Someone says Masai fleeces the Knicks again. I don't know if I'd call this a fleece, but I think it's a better trade than I could have made, from my bedroom here. So yeah, I think it's a really good trade, especially with kind of where OG is with his contract. But yeah, I'll get more into this. So I'll come into the Pistons game. I'll know all the stats, the true shooting, the trends, the turnover rates, the assist rates. I'll look up all that shit, and we'll talk about that after the Pistons game. But yeah, big day in Raptorland, biggest trade in a long ass time, and the potential to be on the very wrong side of history, or to be to put the final not the final death knell into the Pistons, but I don't know. I think if the Raptors beat the Pistons today, the Pistons might just go like 2-80. I think this is the game they probably have like scheduled as like, we can do this. I was listening to the Athletic, I think it was the Athletic NBA show with Andrew Schlecht and James Edwards III. And And they went through the history of why the Pistons are like this. The draft picks, the Rodney Magruder rebuild, the Blake Griffin rebuild, the Jeremy Grant random year, all this stuff. Drafting Stanley Johnson, drafting Luke Kennard over Donovan Mitchell, tough. Drafting Stanley Johnson over Devin Booker, tough. And it's like, the Pistons, I think, if it goes down like this, and I've been watching since loss 14, I've been locked in. Be interesting to see how Scotty and Cade kind of line up. Obviously, they're homies from Monteverde. There's a area of Costa Rica called Monteverde that I've been to. Really cool volcano there, if anybody knows about it. It erupts every night. I stayed at a place that had a hot tub across, and you can watch the volcano erupt every evening. Pretty sweet. Why am I talking about that? Jeffrey Wong says Lowry. I don't know what that's in context to. I think RJ went to Monteverde like Scotty, different years, but they have that connection. Okay, that's interesting. Chewy Bacchus says, I think Gary's getting traded for a more reliable shooter off the bench. Gary has developed his wardrobe. I'm stoked. I was losing interest in the team. Praying for an RJ Barrett, Andrew Wiggins Warriors arc. Maybe this year notwithstanding, but yeah, I mean, he's a player who's been on the Knicks his whole life. He's never been on another team before, never been in another system. He's got Tibbs, maybe Tibbs isn't, my high school coach was kind of like Tibbs a little bit, and I didn't particularly enjoy it. My mom for Christmas got me on my high school tapes from grade 8, put into a USB, so might make a little mixtape. But yeah, I got my coach screaming at me to pass the ball every time I touched it, and kind of an old school like kind of guy, and I didn't do well at all in that environment. So who knows? RJ Barrett might have that personality where he doesn't vibe with that, and him and Darko become espresso buddies or something. Darko drinking that water bottle, I wonder if Darko going to be a little bit easier on the bottle tonight. Jonathan Convoy. That's an interesting name. Trade grade. The trade happened today, so I don't have a grade. I'm a hack like that. I don't really. I don't know. Is that like really good content when people give a grade? Like, oh, it's an A+ and a B-. I don't know. I failed like half my classes in high school, so I don't like doing grades. I don't like being evaluated, and I don't like evaluating other people because of my own deep insecurities, Mr. Convoy. Isaac Campbell, best trade since Bargnani. Interesting. Also a famous Knick trade. The Knicks were my favorite team as a kid. The Allen Houston, Latrell Sprewell, Larry Johnston, 4-point play, 1999. Went to the Eastern Conference Finals, the 8th seed. It's my childhood, so not so much anymore. Not gonna lie, kind of tapped out. Became more of a Pistons fan actually around 03-04. Really love that team. Shouts to Tayshaun Prince. Shouts to him hitting 5 threes in a row in the first quarter of a college game. Never forget that. Not that I really remember it, but I won't ever forget it, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I think that's it. The Raptors play in 2 hours, so I'll talk more about the kind of stats and shit, shooting percentages, true shooting percentages, all that stuff. Try to get more social media-esque content, from Mr. Quickley, Mr. Barrett, and the 31st pick. I'll see who's the 31st who's the 31st ranked prospect in the draft coming up. But yeah, so that's my initial reaction. 49 minutes. Jesus. Sorry, apologies to the Christians for that, but wow, that's a long ass time. I didn't mean to go that long. Tune in right after the Pistons game, immediately after. Like literally immediately. I try my hardest to make it immediately. Fourth quarter, I'm panicking. 4 minutes in the fourth quarter, I got my notebook out. I got the notes in the game, and I'm like, what's the title? what's the thumbnail, what's the angle, what do I start with, what do I build, I think about all that shit. I act dumb, but there's some synapses happening. So let's cut this off. Fuck, I wanted to cut this off before it hit 50, but it just hit 50. It just hit 50:02 on the thing. So this is going to be a 50-minute it's a 50-minute quick hit instant reaction video. Fuck. But yeah, check out the post game show. I got a bunch of Raptor moments episodes. I'm working on like 4 or 5. I don't know if I'll do one for the trade. Kind of 2 on the nose. I got a Adam Silver, Henry Kissinger / underwear video going. I got an OG video going, so that might be emotional for some people. Got one for about the subreddit in particular. The Toronto Raptors subreddit is kind of the topic of the video, because there was a pretty funny event regarding some anti-European sentiment, which I've made some pretty big call them European jokes on this channel, so thought it would really fit into the brand. We'll do that. And once again, farewell to Malachi. Again, blog TO writing an article about my Malachi farting on the bench video. Top 4 probably Raptor moment, maybe even top 3 of all time. Shouts to the author. The article wasn't amazingly written. I don't think the prose was that great. Some 45-word sentences going on, but all in all, it's just an incredible thing to happen. Precious Achiuwa. I saw him for 3 seconds in Victoria, BC once. Same as Malachi. I saw him for about 3 seconds in Victoria, BC. It's a pretty strong connection with those guys. It's going to be tough. Gonna really miss the comedy, I guess, that came with the duo there. So yeah, big day in Raptorland, and it's only 1:13 Western time. So tune into the post game show. Apologies for the 52-minute long fucking diatribe that this was.